back to Speaking with Confidence, a podcast that helps you build the soft skills that lead to real results. Communication, storytelling, public speaking, and showing up with confidence in every conversation that counts. I'm Tim Newman, a recovering college professor turned communication coach, and I'm thrilled to guide you on a journey to becoming a powerful communicator. If you're an introvert in today's workplace, you've probably been given some terrible advice, such as speak up, be more charismatic, network harder. It's exhausting, right? The corporate world has this obsession with extroversion, treating it like the only model for leadership and influence. For Gen Z entering the workforce, the pressure to perform constant charisma in meetings and on Zoom calls is real, and it's burning people out. We've been sold a myth that the loudest voice in the room is the most influential one. But what if that's wrong? What if your quiet nature isn't a weakness, but a massive strategic advantage? Research from places like the Academy of Management Journal shows that introverts often match or even outperform extroverts, especially when leading proactive teams. The high cost of trying to fake extroversion is burnout and inauthenticity. Today, I'm going to show you a research-backed framework to stop trying to be someone you're not and start leveraging your quiet strength for genuine, greater influence. The first and most powerful advantage you have as an introvert is your ability to listen. And I don't mean just waiting for your turn to talk. I mean true, active listening. Research points out that introverts function as effective social scientists. You're naturally wired to decode verbal and nonverbal cues, the subtle shifts in body language, the tone of voice, what's being said, and, more importantly, what's being left unsaid. And this is your superpower. Contrast this with how many extroverts often operate. They tend to listen to respond, not to understand. They're formulating their next point while someone else is speaking. You're probably absorbing the entire landscape of the conversation. This deep listening is what builds genuine trust and psychological safety within teams. When people feel heard, they feel valued. And when they feel valued by you, your influence grows exponentially. The strategic power here is an observation. Because you're not constantly battling for airtime, you notice patterns others miss. You see the person who hasn't spoken but has a thoughtful expression. You pick up on the underlying tension between two colleagues that's affecting the project. This isn't just about being quiet. It's gathering crucial intelligence. Let's make this practical with what I call the 80-20 listening rule for meetings. Your goal is to listen 80% of the time and speak 20%. But that 20% is going to be pure gold because it's informed by everything you've absorbed. Instead of feeling pressure to contribute to every single point, you give yourself permission to listen with intent. And when you do speak, you can connect the dots that others can't see. You can say, I've been listening to the concerns from marketing and the timeline from engineering, and it seems like the core issue is X. That kind of synthesis commands attention. Listening is your foundation. It's what you do with that information that creates real impact. Now, let's talk about something that often feels like a disadvantage, but is actually a neurological edge. Your need to process before you speak. That moment of silence, that pause, is where your power lies. While others are rushing to fill the air with half-formed ideas, your brain is doing deeper work. Research supports this. Introverts' slower processing often leads to better, more considered decisions. A study highlighted by the Journal of Applied Psychology found that communication skill, not extroversion, is what predicts leadership success. Your thoughtful pace is a feature, not a bug. And the key is to turn that perceived hesitation into deliberate thoughtfulness. And this is where the pause and pivot technique comes in. Let's say someone throws a complex question your way in a meeting. Instead of panicking and giving a rushed, mediocre answer, you buy yourself some time. You can use a simple bridge statement like, that's an important question. Let me think about that for a second. That pause is strategic. It signals that you're taking the question seriously and not that you're unprepared. In that moment, you're formulating a killer response. You're filtering your thoughts through all the listening you've been doing. The result? Precision. When you finally speak, your words carry more weight because they are concise, data-backed, and insightful. How do you use silence strategically without appearing unprepared? Quite simply, you just own it. You maintain confident body language, a calm posture, and direct eye contact. The pause feels intentional. Think of it like a conductor allowing a moment of silence before the crescendo. It builds the anticipation. Let me give you a quick case study. I was coaching a client who dreaded being put on the spot. In a heated project discussion, her manager directly asked for her opinion on a contentious issue. She used the pause. She took a breath and said, "I want to make sure I'm addressing the root of the problem." And in those few seconds, she reframed the entire discussion from arguing about the symptoms to solving the core issue. Her comment wasn't the loudest, but it was the one that changed the direction of the meeting. And that's the power of the strategic pause. It transforms you from being reactive to being a strategic leader. So we've got the listening and the strategic pause. Now, how do you package that into a reliable system you can use in any situation? And this is where we get into the actual formula part, what I call the precision protocol. It's a 3-part system designed to make every word you say count, so you command attention without having to commandeer the conversation. Part 1, we've talked about this before. It's the pre-meeting intel. This is your secret weapon. It's about preparation, but not in the anxious, over-rehearsing way. It's strategic. Before any meeting, review the agenda and identify 2 or 3 key points where you can add value. Do a little background research if it's needed. And jot down a single bullet point for each. This isn't about writing a script. It's about having a prepared anchor. It transforms you from someone who might speak into someone who is prepared to contribute something specific. You're walking in with a plan, which immediately reduces anxiety. Part 2 is the bridge statement. This is your graceful entry into the conversation. Instead of just jumping in and hoping for the best, you use a simple phrase to signal your intention. It could be as simple as, building what Sarah just said, or, I've been thinking about the budget point, and this does 2 things. First, it shows you're actively listening and connecting ideas, which reinforces your role as a synthesizer. Second, it gives you a smooth, low-pressure on-ramp to speak. You're not interrupting, you're contributing to the flow. And part 3 is the value bomb. And this is the payoff. After your bridge, you deliver a concise, insight-packed statement. And this is where the listening and the pausing pays off. Your contribution is clear, data-informed if possible, and directly relevant. It's not a long monologue. It's a sharp, impactful point that moves the discussion forward. So why does this framework work so well? Because it makes you the person in the room who, when they finally speak, everyone leans in to listen. They know you're not just talking to hear your own voice. You've earned that credibility through your previous silence. Now, let's apply this to a common scenario, such as a project check-in meeting. You've done your pre-meeting intel and know the timeline is a risk. Someone mentions a delay. You use your bridge. That's a good point about the delay. I was looking at the dependencies earlier. Then you drop the value bomb. If we shift the client review to Thursday, it actually gives us a 2-day buffer without impacting the final deadline. I can draft the email now. Here, you've just solved a problem, shown initiative, and done it all with calm precision. And that's the precision protocol in action. The real long-term power of this approach isn't just about winning in a single meeting, It's about building a reputation. When you consistently communicate this way, only speaking when you have something valuable to say, you build immense trust. People start to see you as reliable, thoughtful, and substantive. Research supports that introverts often create deeper, more authentic connections because they're not performing. They're just being strategically themselves. And this is especially powerful for Gen Z, an audience that highly values transparency and authenticity over performative, polished confidence. They can spot a faker a mile away. And by embracing this method, you're not hiding your introversion. You're leveraging it as your professional signature. And the compound effect is real. Over time, the anxiety of speaking up diminishes because you're not forcing anything. You're operating from a place of prepared strength. You become known as a person whose comments are always worth hearing. So your quick start guide is this. Pick one piece of the precision protocol to implement this week. Maybe it's just the pre-meeting intel. Before your next team call, spend 5 minutes identifying one potential contribution. That's it. The measurable outcomes are clear. Increase influence because your words carry more weight. Reduce meeting anxiety because you have a plan. And stronger relationships because you're building trust through consistency. This approach is perfectly suited for modern hybrid and remote work, where thoughtful, written communication and intentional speaking are even more valued. Your quiet nature was never a barrier to leadership. It was just a strength you hadn't been taught how to use. If you want to dive deeper into leveraging your introvert strengths, check out my conversation with Stacy Chazen in the January 6, 2025 episode, where we explore more strategies for quiet communicators. That's all for today. Remember, we're looking for progress, not perfection. Be sure to visit speakingwithconfidencepodcast.com to get your free ebook, The Top 21 Challenges for Public Speakers and How to Overcome Them. You can also register for the Forming for Public Speaking course. Always remember, your voice has the power to change the world. We'll talk to you next time.